Welcome to Tippcast by the Nina Guardian. Hello and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined again this week by Shane Brophy, who has a little arrival there in the last week. We didn't have you last week, but I'd say you were buzzing and kept busy.
Yeah. No, it's all changed in the Brophy household in the last week. So our first child Cormac arrived last Monday week. So all well, came home last Friday. So we were no matches allowed last weekend while we got settled in. But in fairness to him, we got to see a nice chunk of them live on the telly or live streaming. So it worked out well. So thankfully the mum and baby are doing great. So.
And did anyone bring a hurley in for the baby?
Not yet, no. God, everything but at the moment. Like, I suppose there's people are trying to lay claims to which club he'll play for after a while, but sure, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So
yeah, I hope the foot is put down from your point of view. Anyway, lots to talk about in the show today. Please do get your comments. If you comment on YouTube or Facebook, we can bring it up on screen here. If you want to comment on Twitter, we can talk about that too. We'll talk about the Tipperary club quarterfinals from last weekend in the hurling. We'll preview the football. Also looking at Shane was at the county board meeting last night. There are 5 delegates from Tipperary that will be going up to a special congress on Saturday. And it is a pretty huge one. And you have some thoughts on how you'd like to see things change. Also, a quick word on Davey Fitz going to Galway, because, you know, the route to the All-Ireland next year might be going through Galway at some point. So it's certainly worth talking about that, because what an interesting appointment that's going to be. But we'll start off with the championship. And I suppose maybe the game last Friday, Borrisoleigh versus Mullinahone. It was a cracker anyway, to put it that way, in terms of excitement. I mean, when you've kind of skin in the game, you know, I'm from Borrisoleigh, like, so I'm watching it and I'm nearly pulling my hair out watching it. But to watch it as a neutral, what was it like?
Yeah, no, I got to see most of it without being disrupted too much. But look, you got to say, I did think this had the potential to be the most exciting game of the weekend, because I thought there were. I saw enough of Mullinahone against Toom to say that their style was going to give Borrisoleigh problems, especially when they got up and running. Like, I suppose the first 15 minutes, it took them a while to. I suppose it took them maybe a while to get up to speed, but after that, like second, third quarter, Mullinahone were by far the better team. Their use of the ball was much better. They got their matchups right, but I suppose strangely enough, you had that. We see it so often, like a red card, and suddenly the opposition or the team that goes down to 14 men suddenly spring to life, and then Borris hit about 1-4 without reply to go 4 points up, and you think they have it won, and then Mullinahone come back. So look, it was a fantastic game. I suppose. Thankfully, it didn't go to penalties, that somebody won it on the field of play, and Borrisoleigh did it. But I suppose, look, it has come at a cost. Like, Kevin Maher's going to miss the semi-final through suspension, and I suppose it doesn't look good for Brendan Maher at the moment. I reached out to Johnny Kelly yesterday to see what's the issue with his knee, and even up to yesterday, no scan had taken place. The knee was still too swollen, so that leads me to believe whatever about being fit for Sunday week, he'd even struggle to make a final, I would think, at this stage, if they got that far. So, but going back to the game, look, in terms of what you want in a quarter final, a ding-dong battle, you couldn't have asked for better.
Yeah. I like the one thing that's counting in Brendan's favour. Let's say it's nothing too bad, and once the swelling comes down, he gets a scan, it's clear. This game was on the Friday, and you know it is 2 weeks later that the semi-finals are on, but you're going 2 weeks plus the Friday to the Sunday, so you know you're close to 16 days. It gives him a bit more of a chance.
It is the knee he injured in 2018, which is it's hard to know. Like, sometimes you see lads that get cruciates and they nearly walk off the field no problem, and then they get scanned a few, then the cruciate is gone. Hopefully, maybe it's something, maybe it's cartilage related, even though that could be an annoying short-term issue. Like, you could strap him up and get him out there, but he won't be 100%. But for his sake, I hope it's not the cruciate. It'd be a cruel way to end his year.
Yeah, it'd be a big blow to take when I think he's going to be closing on 32 in the new year. Yeah. So that would be a tough one to get at that age. But what was your sense overall of Mullinahone? Because this is a team that, you know, bet your own Laura in the Seamus O'Reen final last year. Don't think too many teams would be suggesting that they were going to go and win Dan Breen this year. But they've given some account of themselves over the course of the season.
They have, like I say, I would have seen them a couple of times last year, saying, and then the Oreen final, and then against Tuam. I just thought they're a very, very well coached team. Their use of the ball is very good. They're constantly on the move. Lads don't really maybe stay in I suppose between 5 and 12. Lads they tend to move around. Like that, they're always on the move. Like they don't tend to stay in one position and maybe just get man marked. Like they like to make themselves available for the ball. And look, when you have, it's easy to focus on Owen Kelly and Paul Curran because they're the elder statesmen, they're the former star names, but like they have some excellent quality there. Like Sean Curran is as good a club hurler as you will see. Like he probably, I suppose, he was on the Tipp panel for a good few years, but probably never really had the I would say the quality for intercounty level. I suppose he did get to play a good few senior championship matches, but he was always maybe missing that element that maybe would have made him a serious intercounty player. Look at Owen Fennelly, centre back, very, very good. Alan Curran, very good. Kevin Walter, corner back, was unreal on the night, like very, very good. A couple of young lads, Owen O'Dwyer, there's a Conor O'Brien. Like they're bringing on a couple of young lads every year. So look, I do think there will be a fall off maybe when Curran and Owen Kelly do go away, but I don't think it'll be a huge drop off. Like I think they'll be a top level Dan Breen team for a couple of years. But as I say, once you get up to Dan Breen, like only one team gets relegated, so really you're only looking at 1 or 2 wins every year to stay up there. And I think they showed enough. I don't know if you feel that they belong at that level. Whether they'll ever get to the contention end of it, I'm not sure. But look, I think they definitely showed last Friday that they're definitely a top level team.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly did get 11 points, 2 of those from play and 9 frees. And
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing there. Do they have someone even to take over the frees when he retires? Because I'd say for the last number of years in Mullinahone, no one even bothers practicing the frees. I mean, I could be completely wrong. But, because Kelly's going to be on the frees, then you have someone who's ready to step up and take over. Because that's like, there were times in some of the games that I watched over the weekend in different parts of the country. Like, for example, I watched St. Jude's against Nafina in the Dublin Championship. And Jude's didn't have a regular free taker, or their formerly free taker was no longer taking him. And Danny Sutcliffe was taking him, and he was missing him constantly. I mean, you could see he wasn't suited to doing it. Then Donald Burke, who's brilliant at them for Dublin, he eventually started missing him, so someone else took over. And I just wonder for someone like Mullinahone, is that going to be an issue? Like even look up until Eddie Ryan took them over with Borrisoleigh this year. Brendan Maher had to be brought up from sweeper every time to take a free on the 21. That's the sort of a thing that you could do without. But like at least from play, Martin Keogh, didn't he score 1-2? Jack Shelley scored 1-2. Didn't Shelley score 2-5 against Toomey Bar the last day out? And then you had 4 or 5 other lads getting on the score sheet. They have a lot to work with, and they got used to winning now in the last year or two.
They did, yeah. And I thought it was a clever move this year, moving Owen Kelly out to centre forward. It was like inside in the full forward line, like he just doesn't have the legs. Whereas you put him out centre forward, his brain. Like he is so astute, like he knows he can't be running here, there, and wherever. So he's got to be so acute into drifting into pockets of space. And look, he did that on the night, and like he was so effective for them. And I suppose my only disappointment was that maybe this game wasn't on the Saturday as part of the RTE coverage, that people could have seen Owen Kelly, the national audience could have seen Owen probably one last time. Maybe I'm not to say he's going to retire and like he's playing too well. He should definitely be hurling into his 40s if he wants to. Like so, but look, it was an excellent performance by Mullinahone. Look, you got to give credit to Borrisoleigh too. Like when that red card happened, you said, God, where were they going to come from? Because like they'd been out hurled in the second and third quarters. Like they had shown nothing. But look, they found a little bit more. In fairness to them, I thought Niall Kenny was powerful, and the night really took the battle to the Mullinahone defence, particularly when Connor was particularly quiet. Jerry Kelly didn't get into the game. JD Devaney was poor. Defensively, I thought Borrisoleigh looked under a little bit of pressure. How Seamus Burke was excellent again, like
as always.
Like he was very, very good. Look, they have issue. Look, I suppose going into a semi-final, they're perfectly set up as there has to be a massive level of improvement. There's going to be at least one change, maybe 2. And I thought it was interesting, Johnny Kelly's managerial approach, the way he used his bench. And like even bringing Tommy Fahey on, like we all know Tommy is a defensive player, but look, the previous week in the North Junior A final, they brought Tommy up in the last 5 minutes and he scored 2 goals, brought him up from centre back and like fair play to Johnny to think that he might be able to give us something at senior level if we did the same thing, and it worked to a certain extent, because strangely, like even with the 2 Kennys, the ball wasn't sticking as well as other years, and you got to give credit to Mullinahone full back line for that. And and the fact that the easy thing to do when you bring off good players is throw them back on in extra time, and Johnny Kelly didn't do that, particularly with James Devaney. I know Shane McGrath in commentary was perplexed as to why you would take off a player like that, but I think he blows so hot and cold. I actually think it's Johnny Kelly maybe putting the gun to, maybe that's probably too strong of an analogy, but really putting it to JD. You need to become more consistent. Like, you can't go from scoring maybe 8 points in play like he did against Templederry one week to being very, very poor the next game. He's very, very hot and cold, and I suppose maybe it's a tough love approach with him that he really needs James Devaney really to step up and play for the team now. Because look, we know the talent he has.
Yeah, but I just wonder too, is it coaching and is it style of the team? Eddie Ryan is actually, like, he's hit the ground running like a duck to water. What he does is he gets near rucks and gets on the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he goes into the middle of them and wins the ball. Sure, like, he's a young guy. He's too slight to be going in and winning ball, but he's always there around the fringes, and he's very good at picking up the break and moving. And JD probably needs to do more of that. But also, like, you've listed out players there that maybe didn't stand out, the likes of Jerry Kelly, and I'd add in maybe Kevin Maher even before he was sent off, and some of the lads around the midfield area. But like, Dan McCormick wins an absolute mound of balls. So in terms of winning the ball, he's man of the match most games recently. But arguably, he's putting his team under massive pressure by bypassing Jerry Kelly, by bypassing JD, by bypassing all of these players, by every ball put to the clouds. I understand that the twin Kenny Towers are going to win plenty of ball. But, I mean, it caught up with Bursley last year, putting every ball long. Like, are you telling me that you wouldn't get scores if you went short to Jerry Kelly, who scored 6 from play in an All-Ireland final, by going short to Kevin Maher, who's the centre-back for the Tipp under-20s? And it just doesn't help the team, because if Bursley didn't have hurlers, I'd say fair enough, put every ball to the clouds. But the setup of the team is more suited to putting a converted back who's 6'4" in full forward from the bench, Tommy Fahey, than it is to JD and Jerry Kelly and all that. And Tommy Fahey did very well coming on. But like, it's only a few years ago he was operating in defence, and now the game plan is more suited to a converted back in full forward than it is to these quality lads who've played Tipp at different levels.
I get your point, but I think that maybe the fact that looks like Kevin and Brendan will be missing, they might have no choice but to bypass midfield. But even though I thought Tommy Ryan was excellent when he came on, really put in a big shift around him. I know he had his injury problems this year and he was sent off against Kiladangan. Probably became the forgotten man of the team, but I thought he more than most maybe after he came on really gave Bursley a bit of a hard working engine there in the middle of the field. And like, I thought Colin Boyle was busy, and like, it'd be interesting to see whether your own brother Paddy will find a place for him in the team for the semi-final. I suppose maybe if Brendan is missing, you probably need maybe an experienced head around maybe half back line, middle of the field there, who can do a job, and particularly with who they're coming up against in Loughmore and like Noel and John McGrath, Kieran Conley, like they have so many attacking weapons. Like who you can't stop. If you stop one, somebody else is going to kill you. Like so. Look, I think Loughmore and Bursley would have been happy to draw each other. Like, I think both will fancy maybe taking on each other on Sunday week. I think it'll be a cracker. I think both semi-finals are absolutely intriguing as to what we could get.
Yeah, I do think Bursley can go on and win that game, but I do think it'll catch up with them eventually if they keep going long in every ball. But those injuries, the injury to Brendan Maher, assuming he misses that game and Kevin Maher being out, that could catch up.
The only thing I would say is that as the pitches start to get slower, it sort of plays more into Bursley's hands. I'm not saying they're an inferior hurling team to the other three, but I think they're slightly more suited maybe to slower pitches, as we saw in maybe 2019, than the other three who are very much ball playing teams primarily.
Yeah, well, there's lots of physicality in the team, so I'd agree with you there. Comments in from Donica Hassey. Congrats, Shane Brophy. Played a junior C match the morning after my daughter was born last month, so no excuses there. So you're going to have to get out in the field, Shane. Flannery's Shane Edwards says, the more I hear from Colin Bonner, the more encouraged I feel for Tipp next season. John McGrath was really on it. We'll talk about Loughmore in a while. Thurles Sarsfields, they beat Clonulty Rossmore. This was live on TV. Is it, just to reflect on the scoreline? Well, obviously, Bursley won 124-219 after extra time. Thurles 219, Clonulty Rossmore 114. Just when Pa Burke scored that goal in the first half, you know, when he was able to plant the feet and wind up, you kind of knew it was going into the net and nowhere else. Same as John McGrath with one of his goals against Kiladangan. Were you impressed with Thurles, with what you saw?
To a certain point, like I thought they were comfortable without ever being impressive. Like you take maybe that 5-minute blast in the first half where Pa Burke got the goal and they got the penalty. Really take that out of it. It was fairly an even enough contest after that. And like the third quarter, if Clonulty had taken some more of their chances when they were dominating half back line and midfield, and if they got back within 2, 3, 4 points, which the chances they had, they could have been, it'd be interesting to see how Thurles would have coped. Look, that they got there, but I think there's definitely way more scope for improvement. I know you were saying 2 weeks ago, last time when we were chatting, that you weren't overly sold on Thurles yet. I tend to agree with you as well. I just think when the pressure came on, maybe the last day in the third quarter, I didn't think they responded well. It was just that maybe Clonulty didn't take advantage of it. I think if they had that lull against a Kiladangan, or maybe if they're in a county final against a Bursley or Loughmore, I don't think they'll be able. I think it'll cost them. So a lot to like, but I'm still I wouldn't make them the favourites at the moment. I think for me, from what I saw last week, I said I've now come around to the Kiladangan are now the team to beat. Like so, like they're really, I suppose, look, they're comfortable in what they're doing. I think Thurles are still looking to find themselves a small bit, like so.
Yeah, I think with Kiladangan, the sum is greater than the parts. Like I've kind of liked them all year.
Yeah,
we've talked a few times that in the last 3 years, the only game they've lost, I mean, I'm including this season, 2021, 2019, and 2020, they've only lost one game, and that was the county final to Bursley, when maybe there was a little bit of white fever. They certainly created enough, especially in the first 10 minutes, to be winning that game. But obviously, look, Bursley won that game, and deservedly so. But with Thurles Sarsfields, this question still remains. 3.5 weeks from now, what's the weather going to be like? What's the sod going to be like? I mean, Thurles obviously suits them. But are there enough ball winners in that forward line? Are there enough pigs in there? Like Pa Burke was brilliant at winning frees early on in the game. I thought he was really good. Dennis Maher scored a point early on, won a penalty. But I'm not entirely sure if there's, like, Paddy Creedon looks promising too. But I just don't know if they're going to be suited to piggery in 3.5 weeks' time, or is that unfair?
I suppose it's always the question that was thrown at them, even when they were dominating with Tipp 4 in a row, and then they went outside the county, and the likes of Ballyea and Ballygunner would have beaten them, like in Munster Club Championship. Like, I suppose it's a different team. Like, there's a lot of new faces there. As I said, Paddy Creedon, he's young. Like, I wouldn't put too much pressure on his shoulders yet. But Dennis Maher can win his own ball. It'd be interesting that we haven't seen Billy McCarthy yet. I would have assumed at this stage we would have seen it, if not for the A team, definitely for the B team. But
it mustn't be right.
It mustn't be right. They must be being very, very cautious with him. You think if he was available as the pitches were starting to slow, he'd be a big help. But I suppose they just have so many options, and maybe now that the fact that their senior B team is out of the championship, they can maybe delve down into that team more. And you have the likes of Conor Lanigan, who was very, very good for Sarsfields in their Orion defeat to St. Mary's last week. So you probably think maybe he's a guy, a slight enough guy, but he's previous underage Tipp experience. He's a quality forward that maybe the likes of him would, if Paddy Creedon finds the going tough, you could throw a guy in there who's maybe 25, 26, a little bit more mature, and has played in county finals previously as well. So look, I think Thurles are in a nice position ahead of the semi-final. I think they know they have to show more than they did the last day. It was sufficient to beat Clonulty, but they definitely have to perform to a higher level to be Kiladangan.
Yeah, Ronan Maher fairly loaded at centre back. Well, he was the spare man, the sweeper, and probably too often ball without him. I mean, you could say, why didn't they man mark Ronan Maher? But if you're going to have probably 5 forwards and then you dedicate one of them to man marking the centre back, then you've probably 4 lads who were only out looking for ball in the first place. It's going to be a very tall order, I'd say, to even get scores. So I'd imagine that's something they'd balance out. But Clonolty did have their goal chances, and they probably tried to force 1 or 2, and they missed a few. Jack Butler eventually nailed the 21 near the end.
Jack Ryan.
Sorry, Jack Ryan. And like Sars struggled in the third quarter. They only scored a couple of points there. But what about Paddy Maher then? He seemed to go down on his ankle. It looked nasty enough at the time. He got through the game, but like you never know after the game that might.
Oh Jesus! I'd love to know what it was like the next morning when he woke up. It was like that. That's like I don't think I've ever seen Paddy Maher on the ground with an injury of that nature, like in real discomfort. Like so. Look, I suppose this guy could be a complete freak, and he could be a naturally quick healer, and he could be flying it on Saturday week. So I thought it was an interesting like that. Like I think a lot of clubs would have said, "No, you're coming off. We have more or less have the game in hand here. We're not. You're too important. Like if you." Like he was down for a good 3 or 4 minutes. You thought to yourself, God, will the order of Malta be called to lift him off the field? It looked like he could put no weight on him, but he played it out. So be interested. I suppose they'll probably keep their cards close to their chest, Thurles, and we probably won't know till the ball is thrown in on Saturday week whether if he is available, if he is playing, how 100% fit is he?
And how big of a blow would it be to lose him? Would they need to rejig? Do they have someone to play full back? Would Ronan have to go back?
I doubt it, but would they have a good enough centre back to fill in there? Like I suppose you could put Mickey Cahill back there. I thought Jack Derby, I think he played. Was he in the half back line against Clonolty? I thought he could play. He could play in the full back line. And Cahill Maloney came off the bench as well. So look, I suppose one thing about Sarsfields, they're not short of defensive options, and of course, look, their second team are playing Senior B, so like they have been up to a good standard of hurling down there. So I'm sure there'll be maybe a couple of guys that have been hurling well there that could be cutting, maybe if not starting, maybe definitely options off the bench if needs be going forward.
Yeah, and Aidan McCormick, obviously, got that bandage around his face at one stage. It's quite comical looking for the rest of us, not for him, of course. He's in good form, scored 9 points.
Yeah, I know he's super consistent for Thurles Sarsfields. Like I suppose they still have the familiar names, but like it's I suppose it's just seeing the likes of Connor Stakelum and Shawnee Butler and Paddy Creedon, just some of the newer faces, the Jack Derbys. There's sort of a fresh look to them this year. Like and looked like Stephen Cahill was coming back to his best there as well in the middle of the field. So look, they're loaded with talent. Like there's not that talent is not a question about them. It's just that. Sometimes they can switch off, or sometimes they have lulls in games which absolutely kills them. And we saw it last year with Nina. It was a 10 or 12 minute lull where the damage occurred. They had a lull against Clonolty the last day. Clonolty took advantage to a certain extent. They whittled it from 9 to 6, but I think a better team would maybe have got back to 3 or even 2 and taken it into the last quarter and turned it into a real scrap. Yeah,
Dylan Quirk looked very good at times. Other times, like I know he kind of planted the feet and got blocked down a couple of times, which is frustrating, I'm sure, for himself. And then obviously you're thinking Tipperary hurler in the coming years. It didn't really happen for him this year at all. He looked a bit nervy when he came on the field, but like he caught one ball in the first half and threw it over the bar from a puck out. That was brilliant. So there were snippets that this guy can kick on.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. And I think there's reasons to be optimistic in Clonolty. Like they have brought in a lot of new faces this year. Like they have a new goalie this year. I thought Robert Doyle, for 19 years of age, is very good in defence. Like you have Jack Ryan, the same, Declan Ryan's son. I think Declan is another son in the half back line. So was it Ian, or I can't remember his first name, but look, they got to a quarter final this year, blood and new players. So I think they'll be a better team next year. And like they were missing Cahill Burke as well this year. Like he would have been a big help in their forward line if he's available. So I'm not sure whether he's injured or whether he's abroad or what. So look, if they were able to get him back on the team going forward, like he definitely offered them another scoring threat from the half forward line.
Yeah, we'll look at the Loughmore victory over the weekend. So, I mean, the first half was kind of ludicrous in a way that Kiladangan played with a sweeper and yet they conceded 4 goals. In the second half, they didn't have a sweeper. Niall O'Meara was moved up the field and they didn't, and they made a bit of a burst for a comeback. Now, they never looked like they were going to win it per se, but like it just even like, obviously we'll talk about a lot more in a second, but if you're Kiladangan, how frustrated are you with that performance?
You would be, but I wasn't entirely surprised. I know Paddy and Liam Sheedy, your own brother Paddy, they sort of tipped Kiladangan when they were an RTE's coverage, but I never saw anything other than a Loughmore win, because I just thought Loughmore they have too many marquee, they have too many good forwards who can turn it on the day. The one thing Kiladangan are lacking is a marquee forward. That's the one thing that's holding them back from turning themselves from just short of being a county champion to being a real champion team. Like, Cian Darcy had a good game, but after that, like, they have no real corner forward you can or full inside forward you can hang your hat on, unfortunately for them. Like, and look, they brought Niall O'Meara up in the second half, but then the next day you put Niall in the half forward line, and then midway through the match you have to put him back in the half back line because the half back line are struggling.
Sure, didn't they put him full back against Kiladangan in the North Championship? So
the sort of fit holes to suit maybe what their opponents are playing, and maybe the fact that he had missed a fair bit of training in the previous 5 weeks, and they probably thought maybe we need to give Niall a bit of protection in the first half just to help him out if maybe he needs to get up to the speed of the game. But God, Loughmore completely bypassed the sweeper, and look, John McGrath outstanding, helped himself to 4-6. But look, he gets all the credit, but like the likes of Liam Tracy in terms of ball winning and doing the donkey work was outstanding. Like, Ed Connolly was very good. I thought Brian McGrath was outstanding at left wing back. And look, I'd love to see the like of if Colin Bonner looking at Brian McGrath said, "You're not to say Brian, not to say it to him publicly, but if Colin is talking to his selector, say, we have 5 league games next year. Brian McGrath, bar he's injured, is going to play. He's going to start every single one of them at maybe number 5 or number 7. I think that's his natural position. I know he won an All-Ireland under-21 at full back, but I think he's a natural wing back. And I know he's not the quickest, but look, some of the best wing backs in the inter-county level are not the quickest. Brian's brain and reading the game is outstanding. Like, so, and look, when you have a half back line with John Maher and John Ryan there, like, they're very, very strong in that area.
Yeah, keep the comments coming in, even if it's just to say hello. Mark Corcoran says, I think the full back line was a problem with Kiladangan. I'd have a few thoughts, and I think they're too nice. I'd nearly go so far as to say too soft across the field. Because, like, you've got a sweeper back there, and Loughmore can walk the ball into the net, and absolutely nobody drew blood. I mean, I would be pulling my hair out if I was watching that Kiladangan team. Hit somebody. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying dirty, but hit somebody. Liam Tracy's able to catch ball, and like, he was even able to, I think for the first goal, when John McGrath whipped it in beautifully, he was able to knock the ball down. Then he had time to pick it up and turn inside. And nobody came over to help out the marker. I mean, obviously, if someone's a strong guy and he's stronger than you, it's hard to win the ball off him. But, like, where is the support? Where is the sweeper? And, like, even, the time that Niall O'Meara was trying to clear the ball and he handed it off to someone, they got turned over. And then Noel McGrath, I think, fed it on to John McGrath. And you're like, you have an extra man back here and nobody's getting hit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like, in fairness, I would say it's Kiladangan. That what we saw in the first half is not typical Kiladangan. They're usually in your face. They're usually tight mark and real tempo to their game, real intensity. I just wonder the fact that they qualified 5 weeks ago. Did the fact that their third match against Ross Gray really didn't have any bite to it? Really, did that come against them? Like, the fact
but they always have an excuse. I mean, you have to. I know that, but you have to. I suppose you have to wonder why the lack of intensity wasn't there in the first half when it was in the second half. And, like, look, in fairness, the third quarter, they dominated the second half. I don't know, the killer. I'd be surprised if Loughmore switched off, like, because they're not that type of team. But, like, if they had a couple of wides, if I suppose what Kiladangan got within 6, but Kiladangan probably had enough chances to get it within at least two or three with some of the wides they hit. And I think, God, then
would have been interesting. But I suppose they didn't really carry a goal threat. Like they had the one chance where Aidan McGrath made a great save, and I suppose Jerome Cahill's chance late on probably was. It would have been a brilliant goal if he found it. I'd say it was probably.
That would have brought it back to 2.
Yeah. I suppose Kiladangan would be so frustrated. Like the likes of maybe Mark O'Neill and Jerome Cahill were very, very quiet on the day. Like that, they had 2 of their better performers in the championship so far. But definitely, I think your posters, like defensively, they were very, very, very disappointing. Look, I think it'll be a missed opportunity for Kiladangan to at least get to a semi-final. Like I'm sure, look, if you played that match between Kiladangan a lot more again next weekend, it would be. Maybe things would have been different, but look, you only get one chance in the quarter final. You have to perform, and Kiladangan just didn't do it on the day.
Yeah, I thought Owen Hogan was very good. He came in for the second half. Mark Corcoran also adds, how long they left that young teenager on Liam Tracy was an issue. Young Tracy looked to have a lot of hurling in him. An odd position for him to be stuck back there. Also, the intelligence of the McGraths is hard beat. Just do the right thing time after time. Really savvy outfit. Cahill's young guns on the Kiladangan team looked poor second to the older Tipp guys. So yeah, a word about John McGrath. For the last couple of years, his form with Tipperary has been up and down a little bit. Even 2019 finished brilliantly, but we were concerned about his form before that. Hasn't really happened in 2020 and 2021. Yeah. Can we say he's back after a performance like that?
Sure, you can't say it hasn't been a big help. I know. Look, you could say in the greater scheme of things, that 4 goals, 2 of them were from 2 were penalties and 2 were balls put on a plate, one by Liam Tracy and one by Noel. But look, you still got to finish him, and he did that. And I suppose just looking at listening to his interview after the game in RT, and even just looking at his play, he looks to be enjoying his hurling again, enjoying his play, even with a bit of football. I suppose maybe last year probably got into his head, and like nothing seemed to go right, and then. Like, I gotta still go back to the Clare match this year in the Munster semi-final. I've never seen John McGrath, like, I wouldn't say out of sorts, but it looked like he was doubting himself. We never seen John doubt himself, or think maybe he was overthinking things, and looked like the flow was back last weekend. And look, we know with if John is flowing and Noel is flowing, and all those McGraths and Evan Sweeney, like, they have forwards that'll kill you. Like, so. Look, I still think they're a very, very dangerous outfit. I'd say they'd be thrilled the draw didn't pit them up against Thurles Sarsfields. I think that they will. I think they'll be marginal favourites against Borrisley. And I think there's I think there's a fair chance they'll get back to a county final again. But look, they're there now. I know people might look at them and say, God, will all the games catch up with them? I just think it's a nonsense argument that is always thrown their way, because they've proven for the last 10 years that they are able to go week after week hurling and football and perform. Like, they didn't lose the 2 county finals last year because they were tired. They lost them because both games by a point. If both matches had gone another 5 minutes, they could have been 1 point up when the whistle went. So there definitely wasn't tiredness that caught up, but I think there's an element that hurling and football complements each other. There's aspects of football, and that I think a lot of, particularly the North clubs that don't play an awful lot of football, don't see the benefits, particularly off the ball running, team play, peripheral vision. That's where I think the likes of clubs that play a bit of football have a benefit from. Plus, they're playing matches week on week. They don't do an awful lot of training. They're match sharp, like, so.
Yeah, even just using the ball and not just blasting it up the field. Yeah. But you could make an argument that there never should have been a puck out for Brian Malachny's winning goal in the county final last year. That when John McGrath knocked it over, that should have been the full-time whistle. So therefore, would the argument of playing both codes be just redundant? But on the basis of one extra puck out, it's now, that they're two. But John McGrath was asked about this, and he goes, people talk about us playing lots of games, but it's great playing every weekend. If you're not playing, you're going to be training anyway, so the games bring you on. It definitely does a lot for the fitness levels, and you're used to the physicality and contest of it, and I think that can be only good for you playing both codes. Now, the only downside is, I think the stats were done before, you're 16 or 18 times more likely to get injured playing a competitive match, than training. So I think that's the only real downside. And the odd time, after a training match, or training session, you're generally grand enough the next day. But after a match, the recovery can be a couple of days.
Yeah.
So that would be the only difference.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I would say that, but I would look at maybe the teams that are left in the championship, like Kilsheal and Kilcash, are still in senior football and intermediate hurling. Same as Loughmore, they're playing each other, Loughmore and Kilsheal this weekend, so you can know that they're in the same boat. I suppose St. Mary's stroke Clonmel Commercials are effectively the same club. They're different clubs, but effectively pulling from the same pool of players in many cases. Galtee Rovers still in junior A hurling and intermediate football. So there's a lot of clubs still, Skahina Rinky and Ballyporeen. There's a lot of clubs still in both codes, and they're still getting to the latter stages. So like I think it's Mine Temple 2 here still in senior football and intermediate. There's a lot of clubs still doing both and getting to the latter stages, and I just think winning breeds confidence. Like whether it's one code or really, if you get on a roll in one code, it could bring you on in another. Like so, I always think if you tell a team you must get tired from playing too many matches, slowly it'll start to seep into your head. God, maybe I am getting tired. Whereas if you tell a team often enough, you'll get tired from playing too many matches. They'll start getting tired. Like whereas I think it's a lot of hot air. Maybe that argument a lot of the time, unless injuries start to build up and because of playing too many games. But definitely Loughmore have shown over the years that they know how to cope with it. But in fairness to them, they rarely get struck down with massive injuries by playing both codes.
Yeah, I remember playing 6 games in 7 weeks there in 2015 at the age of 32. And you know what? Other than like picking up a few niggles, energy-wise, you were grand. A couple of comments in from Paul Tierney here. I thought Cleary of Kiladangan did well, not just from frees. Really impressed with not only John McGrath, but former under-20 Tipp player Kieran Connolly. Is he good enough for seniors? Work rate is class. What do you think?
I liked him when he was on the Tipp under-20s. He probably wasn't one of the standout players, but you know why Liam Cahill had him in there. He was the workhorse. He was the guy moving the ball into the guys who were going to score. So, excuse me, I think he's the type of player that Colin Bonner will like. But I suppose Colin Bonner was a lot like that himself. Colin had a great engine and did a lot of the donkey work. So I wouldn't rule out Kieran Connolly maybe if he has a strong end to the club championship, maybe getting a look in with Colin. I'd say it's definitely on his radar. Whether he's at a level yet to maybe make a panel of 35 or 40, I don't know.
Yeah, and then like we're looking at Shane Stapleton, my namesake from Golden, being on the under-20 hurling setup. Would Frankie McGrath be a good addition in some capacity to the Tipp senior outfit, given the prevalence of football tactics in hurling? Obviously, he'd be well attuned to both sides of it.
I'm sure he would. But we'd have to ask him. Like he seems to have he seems to be getting a great tune out of them since he was it 3 years since he's taken up the management. And they brought in Mick Dempsey this year, the former Kilkenny coach, and not only for hurling, but I suppose Mick previously would have been a great Laois footballer. And
he won 9 county titles with St. Joseph's.
Yeah, so look, they brought in Dempsey for a reason. It's not just for hurling, it's for football. I'd say Loughmore definitely want to make sure they at least win one of the county championships they're in this year. They don't want to fall short again. Yeah, they're doing everything that's possible to win a county championship, either hurling or football this year.
Yeah, I only belatedly got to watch the Kiladangan win. I watched it yesterday. So they beat Upper Church 121-13. I think Upper Church were 4 points to nil up early on in the game and looking quite good. But is that a sign that Upper Church, Kiladangan, who eventually won comfortably enough, that they came into it probably a little bit, I wouldn't say complacent, but probably feeling we'll get through this at some point anyway, the class will tell eventually? Or did Upper Church in some respects leave any chance they had behind them in this game?
I suppose the final scoreline suggests not. It was 11 points for a finish. But I suppose there was always an element that Upper Church were going to be hugely motivated for this game coming into it. Like they got to a county quarter final. Okay, admittedly only 1 win from 3 matches in their group, but look, they had been so unlucky in previous years by maybe not getting to quarterfinals. They thought, okay, we're here now, and look, they were very, very lively early on. Like they scored 4 excellent points, but look, when Kiladangan got up to speed, like they were very, very comfortable, without being hugely impressive. But I would think that the fact that the fact that we're so comfortable actually would make me believe is the reason why I think they're favourites, particularly defensively. Like, if you take the form guide to Upper Churchton, Kiladangan conceded 13 points to them last weekend. Thurles conceded 120 2 weeks before. I do think Kiladangan's defence will be the reason, if they are to retain the title, why I have them as marginal favourites, because their defence is so good. Like, if Alan Flynn plays so consistent at centre back, he's fantastic. James Quigley at full back, I think he's well overdue a proper run with Tipperary. I know he's been on the squad the last 2 years, but he's a guy I'd love to see getting a real run in the National League next year, even at full back or cornerback, because I just think he's such a tough nugget. He's really, like, he's such a gentle chap off the field, but obviously when he crosses the white line, he turns into a different animal. He's very, very good.
Has he the speed and athleticism for an intercounty fullback? You know, I'm thinking, like, look, there's very few that can do what Dahi Burke does, but that's the level of athleticism that some of these lads have.
Maybe not, but that's not to say he has other strings to his bow that could get him away, could make him a real asset to Tipperary. I just think his toughness, and he's a real good old-fashioned type defender. Like, and I think he's comfortable on the ball, and like, you have to be comfortable on the ball to play for the Kiladangan team, like, because they're all ball players. Like Dara Flannery, a really good cornerback. Like, I'm really, really impressed with him. And look, up front, I thought Sean Hayes was very, very good. I thought he was the one forward that really took the game to them. Billy Seymour scored a cracking goal. I thought Brian Malachney, we're starting to see him coming back to form. I know he had injury problems through the early part of the campaign. He really, like, Brian Malachney, sort of a player, if he gets a shot at goal, he won't shy away from having a shot, like we shot in the county final. I'd say 80% of other forwards last year in the county final would have tapped the ball over the bar. He went for the jugular, and not only that, he stuck it in the top corner. Like, it was, like, he's just so cool under pressure. I thought Ty Gallagher in the middle of the field had his best game for them this year. Really very high work rate there. So I think overall, from what I saw last week, I know people might think, Kiladangan, Upper, maybe in terms of the 4 matches, it probably got the least coverage, but I actually think of the team that produced the most complete performance of what you would need between defence and attack, it was Kiladangan for me. And there's still more in them.
Yeah, I mean, they're not necessarily a football and stronghold, but like a football team, they will hold on to the ball, and they'll do the pass backwards 10 yards if they have to go 10 yards forward.
They'll bring Barry Hogan into it. They'll do a lot like Limerick and Cork do. If they go from one side, they'll go back to Barry, and Barry will move it maybe down the right wing, or he'll go. We see with his puck out, he can send the ball 100 yards down the field, and they're not afraid to mix it up either. Like, so.
And he's probably the one goalkeeper left in the championship that almost plays like a de facto extra back, like an extra outfield player. Mm-hmm. And because they're so comfortable with moving the ball around the place, that brings so many more of their players into the game in a way that, you know, I'd be saying that Bursley at the moment aren't quite doing. I think there's more in Willie Connors. Like, he got on a bit of ball, but I think there's more in him. I think Dan O'Mara, you know, could do an awful lot more than he produced in that game.
I think he's the one player that they're a bit frustrated with at the moment. But look, in fairness, Dan's a big game player. He could pull a goal or two out of anywhere on a big game. But I suppose he's not the ball winner that of previous years. He's sort of he's getting out in front with the first touches. Now the ball's not coming up easy for him like it has in other years. But look, I suppose a bit of pressure is going to come on now because their senior B team is out of the championship. So there'll be a couple of guys there maybe chomping at the bit. So I suppose maybe if guys at the starting 15 for the senior team were thinking my place is safe enough now, they might be thinking, okay, no, there's guys ready that have been playing well in the senior B team that will feel that if they get an opportunity, maybe in the semi-final and they play well, there could be a starting place in the county final and offer if they win.
Yeah, and I'd also say they have a great combination in the forward lines of pace. Like, Sean Hayes looks like he's coming of age. If you're to go on that last performance, the way he set up the goal for Billy Seymour, of ball winners, like Seymour can obviously catch a ball, Joe Gallagher can, Paul Flynn will always show for the ball. So this is why all along, I think more and more, I'm just thinking they are probably number 1 seed at the moment. And I'm delighted that they're against Thurles in the next round, because I'd hate the season to go without seeing those two meet. So I'm just happy to take that straight away.
And it's of everything I think Kiladangan have achieved, I think the last thing they haven't done is beat Thurles in a knockout game. I think they won a county championship, they've beaten Loughmore, they've beaten Drum. I know they beat Thurles in a group game a good few years ago, but I think probably the last box they need to tick is beat Thurles in a knockout game. So look, they'll be ultra focused for this one.
Yeah. And a comment in here from Stephen Shure. Alan Flynn is a serious talent, has been in super form, huge player for Tipp in 2022. What do you think his best position is? And I'm thinking in Tipp terms here.
But I think he's a very good midfielder for Tipp in terms of that defensive screen he gives, but he's definitely his best position is the half back line. I think he could comfortably play 5, 6, or 7 for Tipp. I'm not sure whether he's in some ways. Can he play? Look, 6 is his best position. Is he a top class inter-county centre back? I'm not sure, but could you play him at 5 and 7 and get a really good performance out of him? I think you could, yeah.
Yeah, I like him as a midfielder. I thought he was very good in the 2020, like the winter campaign last year. I think he was very good there. So we've got those semi-finals next, or the week after next. Bursley against Loughmore and Thurles against Kiladangan. So looking through the Seamus O'Reen competition then, Cashel King Cormac's had a bit of a dramatic win over Clonakilty, 17 to 116. I believe Ger Brown was fairly quiet for most of the game, but when it mattered towards the very end, he got the winner there. Also wins for Killinall over Kiladangan, recovering from the heavy loss they had the week before to Loughmore. St. Mary's beat Thurles Sarsfields B after extra time, and Templederry made short enough work of Gertnahoe Glengool.
Yeah, so we're down to the last 4. I suppose I would say Templederry are the favourites at this stage, but look, this is going on for 5, 6, 7 years. The Templederry are nearly among the favourites at the start, and they've fallen short. Quarterfinals, semi-finals tend to be their nemesis. So look, I suppose to win a quarterfinal that comfortable was very, very impressive, and doing so without Christy Coughlin and Brian Stapleton, like two of their Elder Stapleton's a bit strong, but real good, strong personalities within that team. So hopefully they'll have them back for their semi-final against Cashel. I'd say Cashel will probably relish the fact that they'll be underdogs against Templederry. I don't think the favourites tag suited them against Clonakilty. Maybe they might have taken Clonakilty for granted. Look, midway through the second half, Clonakilty were 5 points up. And I'd seen Clonakilty against Newport, and I was very impressed with them because they get the very, very max. They wouldn't have a deep squad, but they get the very, very max out of themselves. A good, strong, united group. But in fairness to Cashel, they showed their mentality. They came back and they won the game. And look, I think that Templederry Cashel match will be a very, very open affair. Both teams very, very comfortable on the ball. I suppose, look, this is where Templederry have to step up and win it. Like, they'll be the favourites. They have to take the favourites tag on and go and win the game because, look, I think for the age profile of their team, like, is as good as it's going to get in terms of experience. The Tom Stapletons, the Garrod Ryans, they're going to run out of opportunities soon to win this O'Reen Cup. I think this year is they have as good a chance as any. But look, Cashel are a very, very dangerous opponent, particularly the quality player they have in their team, like, is there. But like they'll need to play to a higher level. I think I fancy Templederry to beat Cashel. I think, look, St. Mary's against Killinall in the other semi-final is a toss of a kind. It's a South Derby. They know each other very well. I think there was only a point between them in the South Championship this year. Killinall won by a point. I would fancy St. Mary's. I think Killinall they're not convincing for me. Like, it's like you could look at, say, to Killinall and who they have in their team, but maybe we're over. Maybe they are playing to the level of who they are. Maybe we're expecting more from Killinall than what we're getting. But look, if John O'Dwyer decides on the day to go and score 5, 6, 7 points from play, there's no reason why they can't blow out a team. But they haven't shown enough yet, and I wouldn't. If I was to call it at this stage, I'd say it might be a St. Mary's Templederry final. But look, I think there'll be two very, very good semi-finals. The same way that the senior will be two very good semi-finals. I think I wouldn't expect one-way contests on any of them.
No, definitely not. Keep the comments coming in. Let us know what you think. The Intermediate Hurling Championship, the quarter-final results are, well, Moyne Temple beat Golden Kilfeacle 227-111. So that was pretty comprehensive. Kilsheal and Kilcash put up 122 to Ballynahinch's 112. Moneygall beat Ballingarry by 3, and Knockavilla Kickham's they saw off Drummond-Inch. And obviously Knockavilla are down a number of players this year after they went to Cashel King Cormac's. I think Kilsheal and Kilcash against Moneygall and Moyne Temple against Knockavilla, isn't it, in the semis?
Yeah. No, again, two very, very good semi-finals. I suppose you have Moyne Temple against Kickham's. That's what the two teams that came up short last year. Moyne Temple he lost the final to Gorton who had beaten Kickham's in the semi-final. So, I suppose one of the teams is going to be disappointed again, like in the semi-final. So, I think Moyne Temple he have been showing up very, very well all year. So, I probably fancy them. Maybe, but Kickham's really haven't. Kickham's have shown a great unity, I suppose, of resolve. When you take, they didn't just lose 4. They lost 4 starters that left the club, Kickham's, but they haven't really missed a beat. It just shows you maybe that the unity of the club remains strong, and maybe there's a bit more, maybe a relaxed atmosphere in there, that maybe the other guys that are stepping up and they're feeling that they have the ability to contribute. I fancy Moyne Temple he's still. Moneygall against Kilsheal, and I know more about Moneygall. They have a young team, but you have couple of forwards there. Joe Fogarty, who was on the under-20 team, he on last year, 2019, he's scoring for fun this year. He's putting up huge tallies. And then Sean Kennelly, who was on the minor team in 2019, they have forwards to go to win most games. They have forwards that most senior teams would love to have. So Kilsheal have been very, very strong too. Look, I think if Kilsheal were able to beat Loughmore in the football this weekend and nearly bounce into that hurling semi-final, and they're a team that like Loughmore, they're growing very well. I think that'll be a very tight one. Probably Kilsheal marginal favourites at the moment, but again, I think you have two very, very competitive semi-finals that could go either way.
Yeah. What about the Camogie this weekend? It's in the semi-final stage in Tipp.
Yeah. It's not. Semi-finals are the weekend after next. We're down to the last 4. We have Anacarty up against Clonolty Rossmore and Drummond-Inch against Cashel. So yeah, we had quarterfinals last weekend. Again, some very competitive games. So surprised that not that Johara lost, but we're maybe so convincingly beaten 111 to 7 points by Clonolty. So that was a big win for Clonolty. The champions Drummond-Inch didn't have things all their own way against Silvermines. One pulled away for a finish. Anacarty, after losing heavily to Thurles Sarsfields in round 1, have come through very strong, beat Nina, and they're going very, very well. That's what they had some great underage success the last few years, starting to transmit. And then Cashel just edge past Thurles Sarsfields by a point. But I suppose the great thing of the Tipp Senior Championship is how so competitive it has become. For years, it was Burgess O'Hara won and everybody else a long way behind. Whereas now you have at least 6 teams at a very, very strong level, at senior level, which is very, very, very good. And it's probably a reflection of how the county team is going so well too. There's a good intermediate championship going as well. So in fairness, the Camogie clubs in Tipp are going well, and the structures are beginning to bed in with good competitive championship, which is great.
What about Davey Fitz going to Galway? That's how it's looking anyway, that he's going to be put forward for ratification.
Is he?
Well, this is the talk. I mean, look, is someone else going to come out of the woodwork yet? You don't know. And maybe the clubs will push back and say, no, that's not who we're interested in. I even see Eddie Brennan's name being thrown around last night. I'm not sure if that's true or not. Obviously, I'm not going to ring him up and ask him either. But
I saw it. I read the story on the Clare Echo site, and the first thing that came into my mind, and I seen the Davey and such a top-heavy Clare backroom team, and I said to myself, how are the Galway clubs allowing this? How are they effectively saying we have nobody good enough in Galway? Whatever about managing the team, but to be as part of to work with Davey as part of his. I know you'll have a lot of guys that Louis Mulqueen, the guys that would work for clubs in Galway, they know the scene pretty well. But that's the only thing if I'm an outsider looking in that how are the Galway clubs sort of are they happy with this, that they're sort of more or less handing over complete control of their senior team to effectively 4, 5, 6 guys from Clare? Or is this I'm beginning to think this could be a smokescreen and somebody else is going to be announced as manager later in the week.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it could still be Micheál Donoghue. We just don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But like, let's say you are Davey coming in, and because you're like a big name and like to some degree Marmite, some people love him, some people hate him, some people look at the success he's had at every team, and some people say, well, look, there's like a lot of down years with all those teams also. But like, if he goes in, maybe it'll be a bit like with Wexford, where you'll have a selector from a club or two, you know, like Keith Rossiter, he's from Oulart, and then you'll have two joint captains from two different clubs to get those two clubs also on board, and then a couple of vice captains from two more clubs and have them on board. You know, in this situation, if Louis Mulqueen is there, maybe that keeps Liam Mellows on board, maybe Fergal Lynch keeps Castlegar on board because he's been involved with them, and then, you know, the joint captain thing, and all of a sudden you have a lot of clubs that are probably on board with you. But do you think he'd be successful with them? Because unlike going in with Wexford, who they were building under Liam Dunn, but, you know, they hadn't really, well, they obviously hadn't made a breakthrough in terms of winning anything. He's coming into a county that will expect, even if maybe they're in transition like a lot of counties, the expectation will be to go out and not play like very defensive hurling. He'd probably balk at the suggestion that he plays defensive hurling, but maybe it'd be the sense of going out in the front foot and actually winning stuff straight away.
Well, if I was a Galway hurling supporter, I wouldn't want to hear the word transition, or I wouldn't want to hear maybe next year being a fail. I don't think the likes of David Burke or any of the elder statesmen would want to hear maybe we're not going to try and win an All-Ireland next year. Look, there's enough talent there. Look, they've won 5 All-Ireland minors in a row before they have won 5 before last year when Dublin and Cork won it. Like, so look, sometimes you think with Galway have the too much talent, is there too many options like for them to pick, like, and look, they had the players there. It all depends on if Davey does get the job. What's his game plan going to be? Is he going to try and implement a style with Clare again, or with Wexford, or does he use the undoubted the depth of talent in Galway to pick a team, or to put a team together based on the talent they have? Like, he probably doesn't need to create a system to suit. Like, if you go back to the Clare, a lot of the best Clare players were small and quick, so they probably needed to devise a game plan where you needed to be more mobile, maybe carry the ball more, because they didn't have enough tall physical forwards to play a direct style. He probably didn't. It was probably something he probably didn't need to do, and that was the one criticism I had Wexford. Like, you had Rory O'Connor, you had Lee Chin, you had Conor McDonald. You probably had 3 players to play a slightly more traditional, where you could maybe play a long ball in, because like there are 3 guys who could win their own ball and score. Whereas in Galway, you probably have enough. You have plenty of numbers you could do. You have enough physical guys and enough ball players to maybe keep at least 4 guys in the forward line at all time and be constantly on the move. So if he does get the job, I think it'd be interesting, because like, if he goes in and says, this is the way we're going to play, maybe if he wants to get them to play like he did with Wexford, like that's an awful lot of transition for players to get to understand a new style of play. That will take maybe over 12 months. Like, so, and whereas maybe Galway Republic might want him to be competitive and challenging for the All-Ireland straight away, which, based on the talent they have, I would think they should be.
At a minimum, they should be winning the Leinster title. And I'd say that's why Shane O'Neill isn't there, because, you know, they didn't deliver on that front, because Kilkenny aren't Kilkenny, you know, of the previous era. Commenting from James 6500, who do you think is a Tipp player over 26 you think could be a new Tipp senior who hadn't made a breakthrough like what happened in Mayo? I'd say Pádraig O'Hora is probably the player he's referring to there. I suppose, I'm guessing he's around 26. He was drafted in last year and thrown in the deep end against Limerick, you know, on a day when Tipp were getting battered, and John Maher, it didn't go well for him. You know, it obviously didn't go well for him that day. But based on his underage pedigree, I wonder, with a bit more training, a bit more time, and maybe not being thrown in on a day when you're getting destroyed by Limerick, maybe it could be a chance for him, because he's playing well at club level.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, no, it's I'm trying to. It's actually maybe something we might touch on maybe next week or something. I get a good. It was like I was actually thinking about like I don't know if they said 2 weeks ago about maybe if Colin Bonner went down the old Miller Shield route in terms of maybe looking at maybe players on that way. And maybe I was trying to think of who would make an North Tipperary 15 again. Like that's not on a tip panel at the moment. Like I would say. Like a Jerry Kelly, the Moneygall, you have Joe Fogarty, Sean Kennelly. Like you have players in all clubs. Like I would have said, like so my own club in Lura, I've always been a big fan of Owen McIntyre. That Michael Ryan drafted him in 2018, and I suppose just the change on for in management, he probably just fell between the cracks there and didn't get Liam Sheedy, and the selectors probably didn't know maybe enough about him to keep him on. Like you have like the Dara Flannery, he's only 21 in Kiladangan, but I think there's a great bit of stuff in the likes of him. Definitely no, like I'm sure I'd have to rack my brain and think of, but I definitely has to be the likes of Paddy Fitzpatrick and Clare like a 30-31 making the team. I know maybe towards the end of the championship against Cork and against Wexford, maybe we found out a little, but look, I thought his story overall was terrific, and like it just shows you that maybe a late there are late bloomers in all counties, no doubt of it. No, definitely there's something I'll think about over the next week and try and have a few names ready for next week's show.
Yeah, and people get your comments in. Like Peter Duggan is another lad who didn't make it really until, and obviously he went away then. If they could drag him in, I'd love to see Seamus Burke in with Tipperary for a while.
He's one.
Paul Tierney says, brilliant question. Niall Kenny, Bursley on form. I'm not quite sure in terms of a ball winner. Maybe it's
no. I don't think he'd have the pace for senior inter-county hurling, but definitely at club level, he's a serious asset. Same way as if like Conor Kenny has had a good few goals with Tipp, and if he's had 2 or 3 goals with Tipp and he's failed to make it, I don't know if bringing in for a 4th time, maybe I don't think you're going to get to say a different outcome. Like so, not. I suppose you'll always have guys that can play very, very good at the club level, but maybe a lot like Sean Curran with Mullinahone just got to a certain level at the county, but never able to kick on. And that's not doubting their ability. It's just that some guys have higher ceilings than others, and it's just the way things are, unfortunately. Like for players and their talent, like so.
And sure, no one would be happier if we were proven wrong than ourselves, like because obviously you'd love to see players step up for Tipp. Yeah.
One player I would that category comes into my head now is Jack Shelley and Mullinahone. He would be contemporary of Ronan Maher's age. So you're talking 26, 27. I know he's been struck down badly with cruciate knee injuries, but look, it looks like now he's had 2 injury-free years behind him with the club, that maybe if he feels that his body is up to having a go at it, good luck to him, but he might feel, look, I've had so many knocks, maybe stay playing a good level for the club, maybe hurling and football over the next few years, enjoy my club hurling, but if he feels my body's able to hold up for it, why not have a go at it?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the talk of the football championship and the possibility that it's going to be changed this weekend or voted in ahead of the season after next. So just as we're talking in the last little while, there's a special Congress press briefing today ahead of Congress on Saturday, and the Ard Stewart, Tom Ryan, and the GAA president Larry McCarthy, they both came out in favour of motion 19, which is everyone is referring to as Proposal B. Obviously, that involves flipping around the province to the start of the year, and that's
big now that they're coming out on the record in favour.
They've been very quiet up to now. So actually, Ryan said there's considerable appetite for change. I would certainly like to see both motions, Proposal A and Proposal B, given every chance. And like Proposal A is where, for example, there'll be an extra couple of counties moved from one province into the next to balance it out into maybe 4 groups of 8. So anyway, he says consider appetite for change. I'd hope both motions are given every chance. As a purely personal perspective, 2 of the things you'd like to see in the championship are teams playing at their own level and a finite number of games, and motion B, i.e. Proposal B, offers that. McCarthy said, I'd like to see us being bold. I have a preference. I'd like to see Proposal B accepted. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think this is massive. I know it's probably been for people who are in favour of Proposal B, which I would be. I suppose I haven't. If anybody following me on Twitter, I've been a I'd be a backer of it, not entirely because it's a championship that's not without its flaws or proposal, but I'm purely behind it because it's what the players and the management want. And I think, I know there's financial considerations and everything, but like at the end of the day, the players and the management are the ones that are going to go, from Tipperary perspective, the other ones are going to go to Dr. Morris Park in the cold and in the sleet next year, getting ready for these things. And they want change. And I really hope that their wishes come before everything else. I know there's financial consideration. I know there's history of 130 years of the provinces, but the provincial championship hasn't been up a bar Ulster and maybe a competitive Galway, Mayo, Roscommon in Connacht. They've passed their sell by date. And this would be even us speaking as Tipperary people who had the great day in 2020 when we won the Munster Championship. But that was winning a Munster Championship for the first time in 85 years. What good is it to Tipperary football if we have to wait another 85 years to win it again? I maybe from a selfish point of view, maybe for David Power to back changes, we've scratched the itch. Maybe if we hadn't scratched the itch and say, God, we should hang on for another while and see could we win it. But the itch has been scratched. We are where we are now, and I would. Like if we look at Proposal B from a Tipperary point of view for next year, we're in Division 4 of the National League. And if Proposal B is passed, Tipperary will play in a round-robin Munster Championship in February and March, which means we'll get 5 games against the other 5 Munster counties, which means every year Tip will get to play Kerry and Cork. Okay, Kerry and Cork might, especially Kerry, they mightn't be at full strength. But you can't tell me that any up-and-coming maybe Kerry player that's looking to break into the Kerry team for maybe a Division 1 championship won't be given their all. And you won't see a Tipperary team coming against a very motivated Kerry team. So I think that Tipperary every year, that's 5 games. If Tipperary finish in the top 3 in Munster, they're guaranteed a 6th match either in the semi-final or a final. Then they go and play 7 matches in a Division 4. Where if you win it, and look, Tipperary would have a fair chance of finishing top of Division 4 next year, which after that, 1, they'd be promoted to Division 3 for the following year, and 2, they're guaranteed a preliminary All-Ireland quarter-final against 2 of the teams that finish in the top 2 in Division 2. So you're looking at maybe a Roscommon or a Cavan or a Down or a Derry. So a team like that, that's a sort of a matchup at Tip at their very best with going well. Wouldn't be actually terrible. They'd be competitive. Whether the winner is another thing. I don't think they'd be blown out by an opponent to that level. So I think purely and you're talking minimum Tipperary, and it's okay if Tip didn't go well and to fall into the Tailteann Cup, that's 1 game. At minimum, you're talking Tipperary will have 13 to 15 competitive games next year. You can't tell me that's more. Players will be more excited than maybe playing challenge matches every second weekend when they're not playing, or maybe having a big training match in Dr. Morris Park. I just think, and I think financially, when this beds in, it's going to be a massive win-win for the GA because you're going to have more people. Okay, the provincial championships will be played in maybe February, March when the weather's not hectic, but that's. In every weekend in Munster, you will have 3 matches. Just say an average, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people per gate. That's 9,000 people in by 5, 45,000. Then you have a final. I personally think you won't be able to charge €25 per game in a Munster Championship, but you might be able to 10 or 15 in a round robin game. But if you're a person that gets in the habit of going to see Tipperary play football every week, paying 10 or 15 euros a week if you're traveling all over the country, you won't mind that. You're sort of becoming maybe a League of Ireland soccer fan where you're sort of going, you have a home game following Friday. Next week you're going to Sligo Rovers, you're back home, then you're going to Waterford.
And if you know the schedule in advance too, you can sort of build your weekends around it. I think for certain supporters,
the Tipperary in Division 4 against Antrim. God, how many Tipperary followers have had a weekend up in Antrim, up in Belfast? I mean, Antrim is one of the counties I haven't ticked a box off. I I'd love to maybe go up and do a night in Belfast, take in a Tipperary match in Corrigan Park on a Sunday and come back home. Like, what's not to like about that as a supporter? Look, supporters are way down they're on the pecking order of the importance of these proposals. Personally, it's the players number one, and I think their wishes should be first and foremost in this. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, well, just actually even to clarify what Proposal B is, I mean, you've outlined it a nice bit, but I'll just go from top down what it is. So it's played on the current league basis with the top 5 in Division 1 and the Division 2 winners qualifying for the All-Ireland quarterfinals. The remaining 2 places in the last 8, the Division 3 and 4 table toppers, they face the 2nd and 3rd place teams in the preliminary quarterfinals. And then the 14 remaining teams go into the Tailteann Cup. They're from Division 3 and Division 4. The downside to it, and I get it, you have to have competition and teams getting knocked out, but you could have the team who is ranked 25th in the league ranking. So let's say Tipperary win Division 4 next year. In terms of league ladder, that puts them 25th on the ladder. And you might have the teams who finished 6th, 7th and 8th in Division 1 of the league, not in the championship as you're going into the knockout stages. But you do have a team that finished 25th and another team that finished 17th. So I get it, and everyone has a chance, but like the 25th team, is it really going to win an All-Ireland? We know Tipperary got to an All-Ireland quarter or semi-final twice in the last 5 years, but I don't. I do want it to get voted in. By the way, I don't think it will, but I do want it to get voted in because I don't think it'll get the 60%. But because I don't think the turkeys are going to vote for Christmas, but I'd like them to get this through so that in 2 years' time or 3 years' time they go, okay, that was good, and let's tweak it again. So it just moves away from the old system.
I actually think it's on a knife edge now, because I think the president and the Archur who are coming out in support of it is anybody who's sitting on the fence maybe now, particularly a delegate that has an individual vote, whatever about counties, like you have the past presidents, you have maybe the World Association, you have London, or you have those units maybe that have one individual vote. Like, I think if they were looking for a bit of leadership, I think that's a big one. I was just listening to OTBM this morning that sort of did it was John King wall that sort of created a wall of counties of how they're voting. It's interesting that Down seemed to have broken away. We all thought that Ulster and Block would vote against it. Down seemed to be in favour of it, which is interesting. Be interesting maybe if the likes of Antrim and maybe a Fermanagh maybe might go with that. There's an element here where there's definitely the Division 2, 3, 4 teams seem to be in favour of it, but it's the strong Division 1 counties who could be vulnerable to be finishing in 6th, 7th and 8th, could kibosh the whole thing. It looks to me, the word out of Mayo is that they're rejected, and we all know that they tend to struggle in the National League, and maybe they could be vulnerable to finish in 6th, 7th and 8th and stuff like that. I can see your point in terms of maybe the 6th team missing out and the team 25 getting in, but I think there has to be a carrot and a stick approach. Like, if you finish 6th in Division 1, the likelihood is you've probably lost at least 4 of your 7 matches. Whereas if you finished, I know it's an emeritus position, or Division 4 would be slightly easier. But if you were finishing Division 4 and you finish top, the likelihood is you're probably won 6, if not 7 of your matches. Like, you're going to carry some bit of momentum, and like, that's not to say just because you finish 6th in Division 1 year doesn't mean you won't finish in the top 5 the following year. Like, there's sort of an NFL. It's not in America type of thing where I don't know if you follow the NFL, Shane. Where the following year's schedule depends on where, like, if you finished first in your not conference, your division. Next year, you will play a schedule against all the first place teams from that year. Like, you will get on paper, you will get a harder schedule. Count our teams in America have bought into that. And if you finish bottom of your group in 2021, you will get more. The vast majority of your games the following year will be against teams that finished in bottom in other group. Like, you're given a chance to get an easier leg up, which is what I think they're doing with the teams Division 1 or Division 3 and 4 winners getting a leg up. Like, it's that carrot and stick approach. Like, something has to be given up by the strong to help the weak here. There's no guarantee, no team that wins Division 3 or Division 4 is going to win an All-Ireland. But that's not to say it can't be something for them to be a springboard to be the better Division 2, Division 3 team and get up the line as the years go by.
Yeah. Well, there is a point, though, another point on the NFL thing. If you finish the very bottom of the NFL in the draft where you pick the best players coming out of college, you're incentivized. If you're struggling in the season, you're incentivized to finish last. Like the Jets the Jaguars last year, they finished absolutely last because New York Jets won a game, which they probably wish they didn't win. Yeah. And then they got to pick the new brilliant player coming out of the draft. So what I'm thinking is you'll be midway through Division 3 next year and you'll be like, you know what, we're struggling here. We'd be as well off losing the rest of our games being Division 4 next year and maybe come top and get through. I'd be worried about that sort of stuff. But as I said,
I was at a county board meeting last night where Tipp delegates gave a strong endorsement of Proposal B, but I suppose the elephant in the room at the meeting, and it was brought up, is that the likelihood is when Proposal B, as it's called, goes to a vote on Saturday, there's going to be amendments made to it before it goes to a vote. Again, that came up last night, that what delegates were voting on last night mightn't be what will be voted on Saturday. There will be the tweaks made to it, and there was frustration to think, why are we voting? Why do we want to maybe tie the hands of delegates going up? But in fairness to the county chairman, he wanted to go up with some sort of a mandate to say, look, if tweaks are made to Proposal B that makes it worse than what it is now, I'm sure the Tipp delegates up there, the 5 of them will reject it. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be tweaks made to appease certain elements. I suggested on Twitter yesterday that because the Tipperary structure in hurling is a microcosm of the All-Ireland Football Championship, as we have 4 divisions feeding into a centralised county hurling championship, and look, we have 4 provincial. Why not? And
imbalanced provinces, by the way, or imbalanced divisions.
I think the one stick that Ulster counties had with is because there was no benefit from winning your Ulster Championship as it stood. So why not put a carrot in front of the 4 provincial championships and say the 4 provincial winners get a backdoor, it's like it happens, you are guaranteed a preliminary quarter-final in the All-Ireland, like join the Division 3 and Division 4 winners. Not like just.
It's a fair point.
Let me explain it. If Dublin finish in the top 5 in Division 1 and they win the Leinster Championship, in all likelihood, they don't need a preliminary quarter-final. It's sort of a backup. Like if Tyrone win Ulster but finish 6th in Division 1, they still have a backdoor. Like you still have something in your back pocket if it doesn't work out for you. Same with Kerry and Munster. Same with maybe Galway, Mayo, and Roscommon and Leinster. That it will ensure that the February-March provincial football championships have something at stake, because there is a carrot at the end of it. Whereas if things don't go well for you in whatever division you are in the National Football League / Championship, you will still have a back door to the All-Ireland series. That's the sort of amendment I'd love to see put to it. That's not the only flaw with Proposal B by any means, but I think that would appease the Ulster counties and maybe turn some of them back towards. But they don't want to see their Ulster Championship diluted. I completely understand it, because it's the best current championship we have of the provincial football championships.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sure, like Kiladangan got into a preliminary quarterfinal because they had won the South, and it probably added something to the South this year. As we're speaking about football, there's plenty going on this weekend in the football championship. I'll just run through the fixtures. Kilsheal and Kilcash against Loughmore-Castleiney. That's in Cashel this weekend at 3:30. Moyle Rovers against Ballyporeen. Arravale Rovers against Rockwell Rovers, and JK Brackens are against Ardfinnan. Clonmel Commercials are against Upper Church Stromban. I might have read out one of them there that's in the wrong championship, but anyway, you get the gist. Yeah, it's a 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. I suppose the big one is Kilsheelan against Loughmore. I suppose that's when the draw was made, and Loughmore were in the runners-up pot. I suppose everybody was hoping to avoid Loughmore, but Kilsheelan have got them. And look, it's a big game for Kilsheelan, because they
these two teams have met a fair bit over the last few years, and Loughmore have always had the number. They've had it comfortably, but you think Kilsheela now are maturing, like they have so many top class footballers. You have the Bill Maher, you have Paul Maher, you have Evan Comerford, you have Dara Brennan, you have a couple of the under-20s this year who are very, very good. You have Mark Keogh, who we know from Hurler is an excellent underage footballer. Brendan Martin, like they have a lower array of talent. But look, Loughmore are so streetwise. Like I think this is the game Tipperary are going to live stream on Saturday afternoon, so I'm looking forward to sitting down and watching that. So I think this is going to be I still think Loughmore are too streetwise and will probably get over the line. But from Kilsheela's point of view, I think it's a big opportunity for them to take a scalp. I think the other games, I would think they're probably going to be straightforward. I think Mile Rovers will have too much for Ballyporeen, but it's a South Derby. I think there'll be a bit of pride at stake there. I think Jacob Rackens would probably be too strong for Ardfinnan, but I think that's where the one upset could come. Like Ardfinnan, if they get their A game right and take Brackens into a struggle, I think they could win. But I think Brackens a bit too much quality there, and I think Commercials will probably be a bit too strong for Upper Church-Strabane in the 4 quarter final on Sunday.
Okay, I think we've it all covered there for this week, Shane. So don't forget to pick up the paper. It's out there today. And we'll see you all again next week. Thanks very much, Shane.
See you, Shane.
Welcome to Tippcast by Nanina Guardian.